Hi, everyone, and welcome back to Advancing Your Business, Your People, and Your Legacies conversation series. My name is Kendall Rawls. I am the Director of Development with the Rawls Group, your host. CFOs have a vested interest in the business's continued success, also known as succession planning. In this episode of the CFO and Their Role in Succession Planning discussion series, our very own succession planner, Loyd Rawls, along with Brian Brueggeman, a senior advisor, and Ed Reinhard, a partner with Crowe, discuss how a CFO can impact succession planning. Many owners want to avoid succession planning because they believe it is just about planning for death or retirement. And what fun is that? However, succession planning is more about sustainability. To help motivate the owner to act, Loyd, Ed, and Brian encourage CFOs to speak in terms of addressing the possible and probable issues that can impact growth or any industry or economic transition that can impact the business in the future. Let's listen in now. Loyd, will you share how a CFO can impact succession planning?
Yes, fundamentally, bring the subject up early and often. Speak in terms of succession planning is about preparing for the continuation of success in light of contingencies. The predictable contingencies are pretty easy. The owner may die. The owner may become disabled. And then there are lots of probable contingencies, and then they're possible. But I think the biggest role of a CFO is to bring the subject up. And then if you bring the subject up, be prepared to offer a plan. What are we going to do? The owner says, okay, I'm game, have some game. The most important thing to do would be immediately expand that discussion group so you're not bearing the weight of all this. Well, what are we going to do for a succession plan? I'd call in the attorney. I'd call in the accountant. And if you need a facilitator, the group should then agree that, hey, maybe someone like the Rawls group can help us. But number one, bring it up the subject early and often. And number two, when somebody says, okay, big shot, since you brought it up, what's the plan? Have a plan ready to go and say, this is what I think we should do.
Thanks, Loyd. Brian, what are other ways CFOs can impact succession planning?
Sure, Kendall. Just because you are the CFO does not mean you need to have all the answers on your own. Many times we see an advisory team set up that includes others other than the CFO. Obviously, by setting up an advisory team, this can give a whole different perspective. Oftentimes, others can see things that you do not. By getting other people's perspectives and experiences, it can lead to a very dynamic succession plan.
Thanks, Loyd, thanks, Brian, and Loyd, back to you. What else can a CFO do to impact succession?
Well, Kendall, I think it's all about the plan. Be thinking about, if you were the owner of this company, what would you be doing? What type of issues would you be bringing, would you be concerned about? And that's a unique perspective from a CFO, because those are those technical issues of what can we do to raise our profitability, to be able to withstand the unfortunate distractions and costs of transition. I mean, what can we do to raise our working capital? So, they're the technical issues that I think they should talk about early and often. And then whenever the door is open, be prepared to discuss the soft issues. But I think your primary responsibility as a CFO is to make sure those technical issues are addressed, proper business structuring, make sure that you're talking financial planning to the owner, making sure that he understands that if he's dependent upon the business when he retires, he's not going to give up control. No idiot would do that. No one's going to give up control of their financial security. And that's going to create problems for any successor and the CFO, because we've got somebody out here retired draining money out of the company, and we're trying to grow the company. We're trying to do the things that you should do to build working capital and keep your profitability up. And then somebody is raising our rent or taking distributions that are inappropriate. So rely on those technical issues. And when a soft one comes up, be ready to offer an opinion. But your role, your responsibility is to make sure the technical side of these things as it relates to estate planning, as it relates to financial planning, as it relates to business structuring and profitability and working capital, making sure those things are adequately positioned for succession.
Thanks, Loyd. And Ed, in addition to what's been shared, how can a CFO impact succession?
Thank you, Kendall. Couple additional thoughts here would be prepared for the meetings. I have been in so many meetings over the year where we get to a good idea, but we don't know the financial information, so we got to have another meeting, or we can't make a decision. So be prepared for those meetings. Compile the hard data, that 35%, as Loyd alluded to earlier, of the hard side. Compile the data and the information so you have enough information in these meetings to be able to make decisions. I think that's critical. And even better yet, send it out ahead of time. I tell you, I have been to a lot of meetings. Well, we don't have the information, but we'll get it. It slows it down. Or even worse is they hand you, a 20-page document, financial summary, right when we walk in, and we're trying to digest it and make some decisions. So, facilitating the process with timely and accurate information, I think is critical. And it'll allow this process to help and move along much, much quicker. So, definitely participate in a meeting, but prepare for the meeting. Prepare for the meeting. It's been said a couple times, don't be afraid to speak up. You got to speak up. You got to be careful about it, but you do need to speak up. But, the other couple ideas here is you need a timeline. And someone's got to maintain that. Is that the CFO's role? I don't know. Maybe it's the succession planner's role, the estate planner, someone, but they could maintain a timeline and then trying to hold people accountable. If there's a organization structure flow chart due for a meeting, where's it at? Let's send it out ahead of time, Mr. Estate Planner, so all can see what it's looking like and we can sort of think through it. And then just one last thing is, definitely try to push this thing along to the best you can. These plans take a while. And I'm going to ask Loyd a question here, but my guess or my take is they take at least a year, many times more. And these businesses weren't founded in a year or grew in a year. So the key is trying to move these plans along because you've got so many moving pieces. You've got the owners, you got the attorneys involved, you got the accountants, you may have a tax person involved, you got financial people involved, you've got family members, you've got the owner, you've got maybe some managers, you need factory approval. There's just so many pieces. So, just don't wait too long to bring it up and to try to get the plan started. And that would just, my question back to Loyd here is how long does a succession plan typically take? And be curious to hear your thoughts on that, Loyd.
Very good question, Edward, and I would reflect that Dr. Lowe has told me on many occasions that the answer to that question is a lifetime. And the reason being is because of what you mentioned earlier, things are often changing. Now, there is a reasonable timeline in which you can expect significant improvement that is a much higher probability that you can withstand many of the succession contingencies. But effective succession planning takes a lifetime. You're dealing with what we call the 4 F's, changes in your feelings, changes in your family, and changes in the federal tax law. And it's not a project, it's a process. And if you get all excited for the first year and then fall asleep for 3 or 4 years, get ready to do it all over again. The way to have a succession plan is to, yes, put out the front end effort to make sure that you get updated, that you are prepared for the things that you can, that are definitely on the horizon, but continue to show the diligence to stay involved and to continue to look to the horizon about what are the possible things that could happen and prepare. Succession success is a function of preparation, and there's no slick trick or magic to it. It's called hard work. The succession imperative is teamwork, and sometimes it's like herding cats, but I guarantee you it's worth the price, and everybody wins through succession planning.
Well, thank you, Loyd, and thank everyone for joining us here. And that wraps up this session. Have a great day.
What a great discussion on how a CFO can impact succession planning. The next episode of the series focuses on special CFO succession planning topics. Do you have a question you want to discuss with an expert? Feel free to reach out directly to Ed, Brian, or Loyd at the email addresses listed on the screen. Want more information on Crowe's CFO forums? Contact Brian Brueggeman. Continue listening to this series now or come back later for more. Each topic featured, they want you to learn something new.